Hey guys, we're going to read a story called The Adventures of Sinbad the Sailor. Sinbad thirsts for adventure. He is only truly happy on the high seas, even though he always sails into disaster. Wild storms, gigantic whales, an ugly troll, slithering snakes, he faces them all and survives. But is his luck about to run out? Here is the table of contents. There are many chapters in this book, and these are the names of those chapters, and this is the page that you can find those chapters on. There's going to be a lot of new words in this book, so let's learn together. Chapter 1. Sinbad's First Voyage. Voyage means a journey, a trip. That means taking a ship and going on the seas to somewhere else. That's a voyage. Long ago, in the city of Baghdad, Sinbad lived with his father, a rich merchant. A merchant is someone who sells things. When the merchant died, he left Sinbad his whole fortune. A fortune means a lot of money. So that means Sinbad was very, very rich. He had lots and lots of money. Sinbad was so rich he didn't need to work. Instead, he spent his money on fine clothes and wild parties. "Don't worry, everything's on me." That means that he will pay for everything. Nobody has to pay anything because he will instead. One day he was shocked to find his purse empty. His purse, that's where he keeps his money. "I can't believe I've spent my fortune," he said to himself. He decided to follow in his father's footsteps and sell things for a living. To follow in his father's footsteps. That means he wants to do the same thing that his father did to make money. First, he sold his house. Then he bought some expensive silks and spices and went down to the port. Silks, that means fancy clothes to wear that are very soft. And spices, those are things you can put in food to make it taste better. And then the port, that is where the ships come in and sell their things and then take things and go out. Here's a sea captain at the port. "We're sailing to Basra, then out to sea." A group of merchants were busy loading their ship. They invited Sinbad to join them, and he jumped on board. After a week at sea, they dropped anchor by a sandy island. They were cooking supper over a fire when the ground began to tremble. Tremble means to shake, like an earthquake. "The island is moving." "It's not an island. We're on a whale," cried the captain, and swam to the ship. The others were flung into the sea as the whale flipped its tail and dived under water. Whoa, it was a whale, not an island. Many men drowned, but Sinbad was lucky. Drowned. That means they were underwater and couldn't breathe, and then they died. Sinbad, he clung onto a wooden chest and floated through the night. The wood helped him float, so he didn't drown. At dawn, he landed on the shore of a distant island. Distant means far, far away. A man on horseback spotted Sinbad and took him to see his ruler, King Maharajan. Sinbad told the king about the whale. "Now I'm stranded far from home," he sighed. "Work for me and I'll look after you," said the king. "Okay." One day Sinbad was on duty at the port, when the captain came up to him. "Sir, where can I sell these silks and spices?" he asked. Sinbad was amazed. "I had some silk like that," he said. "Well, these silks belong to a merchant called Sinbad," said the captain. "I am Sinbad," cried Sinbad. "But I thought you drowned." "I drifted to safety." Drifted, that means float on some wood in the ocean. The captain gave Sinbad his silks and spices. After selling them at an excellent price, Sinbad joined the captain's ship and set sail for Baghdad. Chapter 2. Itchy Feet. Itchy means you want to scratch. At first, Sinbad was delighted to be home, but soon he had itchy feet. Itchy feet. This does not mean he wants to scratch them. That means he wants to travel again. He wants to go on another journey. He wanted to visit new places, so he bought more silks and spices to trade. So he bought some silks and spices to take to the new place and sell them for money. A friendly captain welcomed him on board his ship, and they headed for the high seas. "This is the life." One day they stopped at a deserted island to collect fresh water. Sinbad sat down in a shady spot and fell asleep. An hour later he woke in a panic. The ship had set sail without him. He was stranded. Sinbad climbed a tree and looked over the island. All he could see was one huge white egg. As Sinbad watched, a gigantic bird flew onto the egg and settled down to sleep. "It must be a roc." A roc is the name of that very big, gigantic bird. Sinbad knew the roc bird was very strong. Maybe it could rescue him. He unwound his turban, crept up to the bird, and tied himself to its leg. Unwound, that means he had a long scarf he wrapped around his head, and he made it very, very long. When the roc woke up, it stretched its giant wings and soared into the sky. Sinbad found himself dangling high above the clouds. That gulp sound is what some people make in stories when they are scared. Before long, the roc dived down into a deep valley. Sinbad felt hard ground beneath his feet and quickly untied himself. The roc caught a sheep in its claws and flew away. Sinbad stared in fear at the steep-sided valley. It was squirming with snakes, which slithered over dead sheep. Then Sinbad noticed the ground was studded with jewels. He was stuffing some in his pockets when he saw a vicious snake eyeing him hungrily. Sinbad ducked down. How could he escape? Seeing the rocks circling overhead gave him an idea. Quickly he tied himself to a sheep and waited. In no time a roc swooped down and grabbed the sheep in its claws. It flew out of the valley with Sinbad trailing below. The rock landed on a cliff. It was about to eat the sheep when a group of men charged at the bird, scaring it away. "Brother," said one, "no jewels in this sheep's wool." Then they spotted Sinbad. His escape from Snake Valley amazed them. In return for some jewels, they put him on a ship bound for Baghdad. The jewels, that's like a stone that is worth a lot of money. So Sinbad, again, had a lot of money. Chapter 3. The Greedy Giant. Greedy means you want something all for yourself and you don't want to share. Once more, Sinbad was delighted to be home. But the feeling didn't last long. This time, he traded a bag of jewels for silks and spices to sell. His third journey went well and land was in sight when a bunch of short, ugly, and very hairy men ambushed the ship. To ambush, that means they surprised the ship, climbed on board, and made everybody stop. One by one, the hairy men threw the merchants overboard, then sailed away. "How dare you take our ship?" So the hairy men, they kicked off the merchants and took all their things and made them swim. The miserable merchants were washed onto a beach. Washed onto a beach means the sea waves pushed them onto the beach. They explored the new shore and found a courtyard filled with pots and firewood. But the courtyard was owned by a greedy giant who licked his lips when he saw his visitors. Before they could blink, he roasted a fat merchant. He roasted a fat merchant. That means he took the merchant and he cooked him and ate him. That's why he licked his lips. After supper, the giant fell asleep across the only exit. Look, there's the giant sleeping in front of the door. That's the only way to go in or out. At dawn, the giant woke up, heaved himself to his feet, and left. The men hurried to the beach, where they tied the firewood together with vines. So they took lots of wood for burning in the fire and tied it up with long kind of plants like ropes. As they pushed off from the shore, they heard a big splash. The angry giant was pelting the raft with rocks. That means he was throwing lots of rocks at the raft and hitting it. Seconds later, a rock smashed the raft to pieces. Most of the men drowned. Again, drowned means going underwater and they can't breathe, so they died. Most of the men drowned, but Sinbad and 2 others were lucky. They survived by clinging onto a log. Survive means they stayed alive, and clinging means holding on tightly. But by noon, they had fainted under the hot sun. Fainted means fell asleep. The next thing they knew, they had drifted onto a stony beach, and a huge snake had wound itself around them. Look, it wound itself around them. That means it used its body and went around and around and around. That's wound. It eyed the 3 men, opened its mouth wide, and swallowed Sinbad's 2 friends. Gloop, gloop. And Sinbad is there shaking. He says, "Maybe I'm too skinny." Sinbad didn't dare move until the snake had slithered off. Sinbad was lucky again The snake was full after eating the two friends. He gazed out to sea, praying for a ship to arrive, and one did. Better still, Sinbad recognized the captain from his second journey. "Hey, you left me stranded on a desert island." Sorry about that." Within a week, Sinbad was back in Baghdad. Chapter 4. Herds of men. Herds means lots and lots of men together, kind of like a herd of sheep or a herd of cows. "Home again!" cried Sinbad. But it didn't take long before he was back at the market buying silks and spices. He was back at the market to buy the silks and spices to go on another journey, another voyage, go traveling again to sell them. He joined another merchant ship and traded his goods from port to port. Port is a place where ships go to land, unload their stuff, sell it, and get new stuff. One day, a sudden gale whipped up waves. A gale is a big wind on the water. Water came crashing onto the deck and smashed up the ship. Sinbad and 7 other merchants were luckier than the rest. They clung onto a broken mast and drifted to a far offshore. Drifted again means floating on some wood in the water. Some islanders found the men and took them to their king. "Welcome," said the king. "Please join us for a feast." Yum! They were all starving, except for Sinbad. He just watched as the others gobbled down food. To his horror, the hungry men turned into slurping, guzzling animals. Wow, they turned into animals. "Stop eating!" Sinbad cried. But the men no longer understood him. An islander rounded up Sinbad's friends and herded them through the door. Sinbad hid in a dark corner. When no one was looking, he fled from the palace grounds. Fled means to run away, and a palace is like a castle, but much more beautiful. He ran straight past the herd of men who were grazing in a field, and he didn't stop until he'd reached the other side of the island. "I see a sail!" There he couldn't believe his luck. A ship was sailing close to shore. He waved at it wildly, and the captain waved back. Soon Sinbad was heading for Baghdad again. Chapter 5. The Rock's Revenge. The problem was, Sinbad found life at home dull after his adventures. Dull means he thought it was boring and he didn't really like it. One morning he saw a beautiful new ship at the port and decided to buy it. He loaded the ship with silks and spices, hired an eager crew, and set sail. They came to an island with another roc's egg. Some sailors were curious and went to see it. They threw stones at the egg to see how tough it was. 50 stones later, it cracked. "Fools!" cried Sinbad. "The mother rock will want revenge." As they sailed away, a dark shape hid the sun. It was a massive rock. She dropped a massive boulder on the ship, and all but Sinbad perished in the sea. Massive is another way to say huge. enormous, gigantic, very, very big. And a boulder is the name for a very big rock. And perished, that means to die. So all but Sinbad perished in the sea. Yet again, Sinbad was saved. This time he was swept to a leafy island. As he paused for water by a stream, he saw a sad troll. "What's wrong?" Sinbad helped the troll cross the stream. But then the troll refused to get down from Sinbad's shoulders. It just tightened its grip around his neck. Oh, the troll is riding on Sinbad. For days, Sinbad was the troll's prisoner. He carried it everywhere until he was exhausted. Exhausted means very, very tired. So tired, maybe you can't even move. Then he remembered he had a flask of wine. A flask is like a container that can hold liquid, usually some alcohol, something to make you drunk. The troll saw Sinbad take a sip and snatched the flask. Snatched means to grab it rudely. It glugged down the wine and was soon swaying from side to side. It drank too much and got drunk. A few burps later, it toppled to the ground. That means it fell over. Sinbad ran away and met some people carrying baskets. "Can you help me get to Baghdad?" he asked hurriedly. "If you help us collect more coconuts," replied a bald man. "How?" wondered Sinbad, following the group into a forest of palms. Monkeys chattered in every tree. "Watch," said the man. He picked up a stone and threw it at a monkey. The monkey was very annoyed and threw a coconut back at the man. "Hey, that nearly hit me." Soon all the monkeys were throwing coconuts. Sinbad easily collected enough to pay for his trip home. Chapter 6. Risking the River. For a while, Sinbad was happy simply lazing around at home. Lazing is like being lazy. Then some merchants came to visit, and their tales of travel filled Sinbad with envy. Envy means he was jealous. He wanted to be like them and be traveling and getting cool stories to tell. He set sail once more, trading from port to port. What a lovely calm evening! Until one night the ship sailed off course. That means it got lost. In the gloom, no one saw sharp rocks ahead. The ship was smashed to pieces, and only Sinbad and 4 others reached the shore. They searched the craggy island from top to bottom and found nothing but rocks and water. One by one, the men starved to death. "Oh, help! I'll be next." Starved to death, that means there's no food to eat. And if you don't eat for a long time, you will die. That means starved to death. Before long, Sinbad was the only man left. He sat by a river, feeling very alone. Then he noticed something strange. The river was flowing into a cave, not out to sea. Usually rivers are going towards the sea. Usually it doesn't go the other way. Sinbad had an idea. "I'll make a raft," he thought, and hope the river leads me to some food." The riverbed sparkled with jewels, so he took a few handfuls before floating off. Remember, jewels are the stones that you can sell for a lot of money. His raft glided into the cave and sped up. Sped up means goes faster, hurtling through darkness. All Sinbad could hear was the whoosh of water. Had his luck finally run out? He's in big danger now. The next thing he knew, he was lying on a sunny bank. A bank is kind of like a beach, but with a hill. He looked up to see a crowd gathered around him. "He's alive! He's rich!" A local merchant gave Sinbad some food, and in return for several jewels, sent him on a ship to Baghdad. Chapter 7. The Final Voyage. Back home, Sinbad's jewels bought him all kinds of treats. But guess what? Sinbad still wasn't content. That means he wasn't really happy. He wanted more. "Soon I'll be too old to travel," he thought. So he set out on a final journey. He was aboard a merchant ship in the China Sea when a terrible storm blew up. A monster whale surged up through the waves. As it got closer, it opened its massive jaws and swallowed the ship in one gulp. Remember, massive means very, very big. Luckily, Sinbad managed to jump overboard just in time. So he didn't get swallowed. Do you see him over there behind the whale's tail? He jumped overboard. The storm died down, and once again he drifted to a strange shore. "Another close escape. I don't know how I do it." Sinbad just barely escapes many, many times. As he wandered through an exotic forest, he found a river flowing into a cave. Exotic means new and strange and interesting. "Aha! I'll build another raft," thought Sinbad. It's a lot like the river going into the cave from the last chapter. Do you remember? But this river carried him through darkness to a steep waterfall. "I'm a dead man!" Sinbad screamed as he started falling. That's a very big fish," thought the fisherman. Suddenly he stopped in mid-air. A surprised old man had caught him in a net. "You need to dry off," said the man, and he took Sinbad home with him. The old man asked his daughter, Emira, to fetch some clothes. To fetch means to go and get and then bring back. Sinbad gazed at her open-mouthed. To gaze means to look for a long time. With his mouth open, that means he likes her a lot. He had never seen such a lovely woman. "Thank you very much." Emira's father thought Sinbad was charming and invited him to stay. Over the next few weeks, Emira and Sinbad fell in love. With the old man's blessing, the couple married. The couple means Sinbad and Emira. And the old man's blessing, that means her father said it's okay. A year later, Emira's father died of old age, leaving her and Sinbad a fortune. A fortune, remember, means a lot of money. "Why don't we go sailing?" said Sinbad. "We could buy some silks and spices to trade." "Oh, yes," replied Amira, who had always wanted to travel. After months at sea, they found themselves in Baghdad. "What a gorgeous city!" cried Amira. "Isn't it?" agreed Sinbad. He was delighted to be home, at least for a while. Delighted means very, very happy. Sinbad comes from a collection of Arabian stories known as the Thousand and One Nights. According to legend, a sultan wanted to kill his wife. To save herself, the wife started telling a wonderful story. The sultan found the story so good, he let her live to finish it. Then she started another one. Hundreds of stories, and 1001 nights later, the sultan let his wife go. Alright guys, that's the end. Thanks for reading with me. See you next time. Bye bye.